Our next session explores an area where change is happening fast. Future-proofing your business. The role of technology in real estate legal services. Please welcome our panelists. Kelly Fry, Team Lead and Realtor, Keller Williams Ocean Realty. Adina Dragonsanyu, Team Lead and Realtor, Oakland Realty. Dan Boisvert, Notaries at Northgate, and Steve Roxborough, Managing Partner of Merchant Law Group. Today's panel will be moderated by Pablo Rodriguez, President of Dye & Durham Canada. Please join me in giving them a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Welcome everyone. Good morning, and thank you for coming to our session today on future-proofing your business. Over the last day or so at this conference, we sort of highlighted some very powerful themes around reconciliation in action and the growing importance of partnerships with First Nations, the pressures and opportunities that we really face in the British Columbian economy, how sustainability and stewardship are really shaping the long-term prosperity here. And we've also talked a bit about technology. We're going to hear more about technology right now, around demographics and regulatory shifts that are really converging to reshape the way we service our community. And so what's really clear is we are being asked to adapt. Not just about the projects and transactions that are sort of before us today, but the future that we're creating together for 2030 and beyond. Future-proofing is really not just a buzzword or a nice phrase. It's something that's really becoming a necessity for us. And that brings us to today's session. Today we're going to explore how technology is reshaping real estate legal services. From AI to automation, we're going to explore how integrated collaboration works between realtors and lenders, notaries and lawyers, how the tools that are being adopted into practice help them to work more efficiently, how we can serve our clients and really build the resilience to service our customers more effectively. So how we're going to manage today's conversation is we're really going to start off, first me, very shortly, my name again is Pablo Rodriguez. I'm president of Dye & Durham. I have about 25 years of legal tech experience, so I'm very comfortable talking about how we bring content into workflow to drive efficiencies, to lower risks for clients. But I am not an expert in terms of real estate, and that's why I'm really thrilled to be up here with people who are. And so, again, how we're going to approach today's conversation, we're going to start off talking about the big. We're going to talk about the trends in the industry, what we see are really changing between now and 2030 and beyond. Then we're going to shift into the practice. What's happening in firms? How is technology being used? We're going to then talk a little bit about the pain points, the gaps, where technology is not servicing. And we'll talk a little bit about collaboration. One thing that I think is great about this community here is it's incredibly diverse. There's a whole bunch of communities here. There's developers, there's clearly realtors, there's municipalities, lenders, obviously the legal community as well is represented here. So how do we work together in a more effective fashion? And then we're going to end up with some sage advice from these panels on new entrants to the real estate sector. What advice will our panelists have for folks entering our industry and really around technology to set themselves up for success? So that's what we're going to do today. At the end, we are going to have questions, and we're going to do it the old-fashioned way, and we are going to have mics. So please think about your questions and be courageous and bring up some questions at the end of the session. Okay? So let's dive right in, and let us start first with the trends. And maybe each of you can do maybe just a little bit of deeper introduction. for the audience here, but let's start off with the trends that are happening, focusing on what's going to happen between now and 2030 in terms of technology. What are going to be the major things that are going to change? Is it remote closing? Is it the use of AI and automation? What do you see as being some of the big drivers? How is the profession changing? So Kelly, should we start off with you?
Absolutely. I think in the last few years, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, one of my coaches said to me, if you're not on video, you're not even in business. So we made a major shift to bring videography very rapidly into our business. And I think in the future, we're going to see potentially AI-assisted videography where we're not even necessarily going to have to be present at our listings to have them done. I think we're going to see much more personalized marketing on listings. AI is going to assist us in our profession to enhance the customer experience, because as technology keeps advancing, the consumer still wants their handheld and they still want to feel a consumer experience. And so that'll be our challenge, I would say.
Fantastic. Well, let's just go right down here. Nina.
Sure.
I think what's interesting with our industry, which is the buying and selling of real estate, is that up until now, I think we've been a little bit slow to adapt to technology, and I think the technology advancements we've seen has actually been more in favor of the consumer than for agents in terms of like decentralizing information. And now, all of a sudden, there's this exciting push for AI. I do think AI is the big thing that most agents are very hyped up about and excited about and moving forward. But what is interesting is when I look at it, a lot of that is geared towards marketing to consumers and the experience, but it's not substantially changing, how we negotiate for clients and really the meat of what we do, which is helping people understand what's going on and get to clarifying information and negotiating and being with them. So I think AI is a big one, but it seems to be a lot more geared towards agent marketing to consumers so far. So.
Fantastic. Dan, would you like to add?
Yeah, I think that certainly from our perspective on the conveyance side, the thing I think that our industry hopes for mostly in technology, whether it's AI or whatever it happens to be, is that the data that we get or the data that we need to be able to complete the transaction needs to come to us in a much more cohesive way instead of the very fragmented way in which it comes in now. And that is something companies like Dye & Durham work on to integrate different products into our main software piece. And then certainly the ability to seamlessly move funds digitally is certainly the next big thing that I'm hoping comes along. And I know that requires federal government legislative change and other things in order to make that happen, but I do hope that it comes, because it would be very helpful to be able to move money much more seamlessly than we are today.
That's it.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I agree with those comments. Moving the money is a big deal, and as lawyers and notaries, we're often the lights, we're the last to the party, we're the last to adapt. So being able to verify ID remotely, which you can do now, but isn't widely adopted in our fields just yet, and then being able to do remote signings in a way that still protects the integrity of the system, so that we make sure we know who we're meeting with and that is the person we're signing with. So the verifying of the ID and then being able to sign remotely, I think will streamline things pretty significantly. But as I said, unfortunately, as the lawyers and notaries, we're often the last of the party. We're the lights.
All right, that's a great way to kick off our discussion today. Maybe we'll flip into a little more of a practical perspective now. We'll talk just a little bit about what's happening in the practice itself, whether it's the real practice or the legal practice, around the adoption of technology, what technologies perhaps you were resistant on trying and now you can't live without, or any other insights around when you use technology, how do you know it's working? What are the metrics of success? Where does it really make a difference? And maybe, Dan, you can kick us off here a little bit.
Sure, thank you. I definitely think it's definitely integrations. As a notary and as a lawyer, we're dealing with so many different pieces of the transaction. We're tying it all together. We're bringing it all in. So we may have data sources coming from 8, 9, 10, 12 different places, different vendors, if you will. How do we tie that all together so that we can get it in a much more seamless and streamlined fashion? Whether it's strata information, whether it's mortgage instructions, whether it's real estate contracts, whether it's insurance, whether it's title insurance, all of these different things that we have to incorporate into each file and bring together. Our biggest stumbling block is that we're constantly waiting, it seems, for 1 or 2 vendors to report so that we can finish our file. Because when our file goes in front of the client, it has to be complete. It can't have holes in it. So that's where I think that we struggle, Steve, if you agree.
Yeah, 100%. No, that's a really good point, and that's one thing that we all struggle with in the industry is we're getting things from 2 real estate brokerages usually, a mortgage brokerage, title insurance, insurance binders. It's just coming at us from every angle, and hopefully technology can help us to streamline that process. I'm sure that it will as things progress, but that's one thing. Whenever we're doing an intake call with a client or whatever, we're always warning them that, hey, as you get close, we're going to meet with you when you're very close to completion, when you're very stressed out, and we may be waiting on things from third parties. So it's better that we warn you now, so you're not surprised when I make this phone call closer to the date. But that's something we're struggling, or something we're handling at all times.
Stephen, I have to ask a follow-up question. What technology in your firm can you not live without, and why?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, e-convey, obviously, not just because Diane Durham sponsors this event, but without our conveyance software, we wouldn't be able to do the volume of work that we do. That I can't really think, on the conveyance end, that's really the thing that we use the most daily. It couldn't live without.
Fantastic. Let's shift over to the realtor side. Very interested in what technologies do you use? How do you see success in terms of the use of those tools? Adina?
I'll go first again. I think the one technology we can't live without is DocuSign. It's kind of a boring one, but if you think about it, it's really sped up the pace of transactions and being able to communicate and do deals, and now everyone wants everything done instantly. So if we lost that and had to drive to client sessions again, I think the whole industry would collapse here. But our biggest challenge, which is what we're trying to work on to, is streamline, like on our end too, we have so many different platforms. They're all cloud-based platforms now, but we have, web forms, which is where we generate contracts, and you put in DocuSign to get it signed. Then you're trying to submit it to the office, but then you're holding it in your document, which is probably why these gentlemen are always waiting on the document. Because, on our end, we're getting deals done very quickly and we're very efficient, but then now it's a matter of reporting it back to the office reporting it to the lawyer. Then there's sometimes asking us questions. And there isn't one seamless platform that allows us to do all of that from start to finish. And I think when we're training people on our team, the hardest literally takes months to get them to really wrap their heads around all these different software and programs that do different parts of the transaction and don't integrate together. And I also think the other issue with that is there's more of a chance of error because we're having to enter the same information in all these. So maybe you guys could come into the real estate transaction side and help us with that.
I would say the use of ChatGPT, Gemini, these kind of things. And I have a lot of very young people on my team, so they keep me sort of in touch with what can be done with the efficiency of this. And I think some of the more interesting examples lately were we were valuing a business for sale, and my background is I'm a CPA, so I did the old-fashioned way, figured very quickly what I thought it was worth, and my colleague said, oh, well, I just went to ChatGPT, and it came up with this big report, and we literally came up with the same number, and he did it within a matter of minutes. So I thought that was pretty awesome. On the more everyday scene, we use it for our listing descriptions now. Even for searches with clients, you can throw a whole bunch of MLS numbers or addresses in, and it'll put them in geographical order for us in just minutes. So saves so much time and so much efficiency. And then even simple things like Uber Courier. Yesterday, I arranged for keys to be picked up from one location and brought to the client's house. It was the first time I had tried that, and it was just so great. So yeah, trying to embrace all of these things to bring efficiency, because as agents, we have 100 tasks to do at any given time. We're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, and this technology has really made things so much easier.
I do have to ask a follow-up question for my realtor friends here. So information is being a differentiator in terms of providing services to your clients. Do you see that changing dramatically? Do you use a lot of information tools to help service your clients? And I'll tell you where I'm coming from. In the UK market, one of the big issues with the UK is the time between sign and close on residential transactions. They have about a third of residential transactions actually falling through between sign and close because of extended periods. So information flow in the UK market is really, really important. And I'm sure it is in Canada too, and in British Columbia. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of technology tools you use around supporting your clients from an information perspective?
Well, we started using a product called Folio. We go to a lot of conferences in the US and we mastermind with our colleagues there to find out the greatest efficiency of tools. And this is like an AI-generated transaction management system that lays out all the steps, and it keeps our admin on task as well because we can't remember all the details when we're handling multiple deals. So we found that to be a big game changer. G Suite as well to keep all of our transactions organized and all our PDFs together.
So by information flow, you mean information about their own specific transaction and how
you can provide better client value through information.
Yeah, maybe we're a little more old school. We use Monday.com, but we have a very systematic checklist, and our big thing is the way we're communicating with clients. Just things like WhatsApp and not automated emails, but templated emails. But we have a very structured follow-up where we want to be in touch with them at least once a week between their subject renewal and closing.
Fantastic. Now we're going to shift a little bit. I know we've already sort of explored this a little bit, but from my perspective, the conveyancing workflow, and frankly the real estate workflow in general, has a lot of friction points, there's a lot of breakages, there's lots of various information sets that are needed, as we sort of discussed. So where are some of the biggest pain points and friction points in terms of the workflow, handoffs to various parties? And Dan, you started us off in this category. Do you want to continue the conversation here?
Well, I have a different outlook on this than a lot of people will. I don't necessarily know that the biggest pain points and friction points to me have anything to do with technology whatsoever. Unfortunately or unfortunately, they mostly usually have to do with people. And that's something that I don't know exactly how technology is supposed to get done. When I talk about it as people, I'm not saying that this is by and large a problem, so don't get me wrong. I think most people in this industry do very good work, but my friction points in my day always have to deal with problems that arise because of people not following through and doing what they're supposed to on their end. That is where we run into problems. We run into problems when, and I'll use a real estate contract as an example, a buyer who is not very informed about what their contract is requiring of them. If there have been special clauses that have been inserted to lubricate the deal and then not understanding what exactly that means. And now we close in 3 days and these are now becoming problematic. So most of my day, 80% of my day is just spent solving the problems that my staff put on my desk. And those problems have nothing to do with technology. They have to do with either human error or human apathy, right? Or some form or version thereof. Now, do I think there's this place for technology to help in those things by integrations and what we've talked about before? I do. But at the end of the day, humans are the ones buying the homes. And humans are the ones that have to organize their lives. Humans are the ones that have to organize their financing. Humans are the ones that have to get their insurance done. Humans are the ones that have to do all of these things. And us humans need to be helping those humans to stay on top of getting those things done. And that would take care of a lot of pinch points in my day that I deal with every day. So that's my slant on it, if you will.
I love Dan, but
Can I add on that?
yes, Adam.
I actually do think that's a very important pain point that we deal with too, and one of those, it's humans and it's things getting done, and to your previous point is the information that's communicated to clients throughout the transactions and their understanding of what their responsibility is versus what ours versus what lawyers are. One of the pain points that happens is after we've submitted the deal, we send it off to our office, the office sends it to the lawyer. We're trying to follow up with the clients, but really all we have to do, hey, I'm your lawyer, hey, when we don't understand what they're doing, they don't know what we talk to with the client. So I think that is probably one of the biggest pain points, but perhaps there is an opportunity for technology to help communicate to the client, like, this is your timeline, this is, we had a deal a few months ago where we were the listing side, the buyer's side, I guess I don't know if their agent or mine, when the buyer didn't realize that he needed the deposit funds to be transferred 3 days before and to me, that's something that could have been avoided with better communication. They did the same thing at closing, where all of a sudden they'll actually need a few more days to get our money from All Simple. But these are the pain points that we deal with. I do think there is a solution around if there was a more integrated communication system between realtors and notaries so that everyone knew where everyone was at.
It really does speak to simplifying processes, having smart, simple steps to the process, educating the participants in each step of the process. Kelly, would you like to add?
I would just say, if there was some kind of a platform that was between our brokerage and the lawyers or notaries that had equal communication, I think it would be a lot smoother.
Fantastic. Steve?
And one more thing, I would just add the mortgage broker and that condensed communication or that streamlined communication. I find on deals, even tough deals, where I know the realtor well, I trust them, I know the mortgage broker well, I trust them, and they trust me. We're able to solve all sorts of issues and get a smooth completion or get through a rocky completion, but get it done. So I think streamlining that communication, not just with the lawyers and notaries and realtors, but also adding the mortgage brokers and all that too.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic, guys. We're going to sort of switch gears a little bit. We're going to now talk about collaboration. And, we heard about the importance of partnerships, from First Nations to municipalities, across the various professional disciplines that support the conveyancing real estate processes. So how do you see digital platforms reshaping collaboration between agents and lenders and lawyers and notaries? Let's talk a little bit more in terms of communication and communication tools and how we sort of address the pain points of handoffs that are not so efficient. Kelly, do you want to start us off on this one?
Well, mine is pretty basic. I have my lawyer's cell phone and I call him up 7 days a week. So if there's a problem erupting, I can usually nip it in the bud fairly quickly. So that's not necessarily a digital platform, but works quite well for me.
Yeah.
Our biggest thing that we try to do is always be one step ahead of the clients and always like, here's where we're at, here's what's next, here's what you're responsible for. We do it via email and messaging and calls, so it's kind of old school, but that constant communication, so they're never wondering, what am I supposed to be doing, is a big thing.
Okay. Stephen, you want to jump in here now?
Yeah, I think we see that when the realtors are helping them through the steps and telling them what's next. So I think that's the same thing. We try to pick up where you guys leave off, right? We try to do an intake call, make sure you have a checklist of things. Has this been covered? Has this been covered? Has this been covered? And discuss this with the realtor. If yes, great. If no, let's discuss it now. So I think that, just more to that,
Fantastic. Dan, anything to add?
Yeah, I think they're all really good points, actually. A system where we were all integrated as professionals, where we could collaborate back and forth, I think in a lot of cases would be helpful. Because there's certainly lots of instances where I need to speak to the realtor directly, I need to speak with the mortgage broker directly to try and clear up whatever it is, whatever this is off the rails. And it definitely would be helpful to be able to do that, especially for not just myself or even for Steve directly, but for our teams, for our conveyancers to be able to do that. So, integration, not just with our vendors, I guess, if you will, on our side, but with the professionals as well, would certainly be helpful.
Fantastic. Earlier this morning we talked a little bit about some of the macro changes in the BC market and population growing, a couple 150,000 a year. I think the BC government predicted by 2046 the population in this province would be almost 8 million. So the province is growing, it's prosperous, but from a talent perspective, it's interesting. I've heard again and again, talent crunches on professionals, not enough professionals to get the work done. We also have technology coming to help solve the problem. I'm curious how you sort of square the circle. Is technology part of the solution with talent? Or how do you see talent sort of changing to address this increasing volumes? Steve, you want to take this?
Yeah, so I guess part of my reflection on this, as technology becomes more and more a part of what we do and essential in what we do. I talked to lawyers and notaries who were practicing before, we actually had to go to the land titles office and submit it in person, right? And I just can't imagine and ask them, how do you do this? And basically, we did less files. We couldn't do as many files as we previously did. So I think technology, improvements of technology helps to increase the volume that the talent can process. But then to Dan's point, there's going to be friction or problems or issues that need solved on each of these files. So there's a balance point where you can't do 1,000 files a month. One person can't do 1,000 files because there's too many things that need to be managed by somebody at the end of the day. But I think that technology really does help to increase the volume that lawyers and notaries can do competently.
Got it. Adina, I'm curious, how does transaction volume sort of impact the way you think about the future versus talent?
I think it's interesting because I think for people who are, really good realtors who add value to their clients and, maybe their experience or maybe they're new and they're just working really hard, adding technology allows you to kind of compound your impact, right? And really grow your business quickly. But at the same time, what I see is a lot of younger agents who come in and focus so much on the technology and getting leads and doing videos, but they're not focusing enough on, being a better negotiator, being able to add value to their clients. So I think when people are coming into this industry and they're only focused on technology and missing out on the fundamentals of what it takes to be a great professional, I think it's really dangerous, and we're seeing a lot of that now. Like, we don't know what are your questions of if there's a shortage of accountants. There's no shortage of realtors in Vancouver, I will tell you that. But, less than 10% of agents do 80-90% of the business. Even that said, it's a very small percentage of people who are using technology to really grow their business in a big way, and it's a lot of people focusing on technology but not actually transacting. So it's a really interesting time.
I was going to say, I think that on the back end, in terms of the ability to get remote workers, we can definitely leverage ourselves and get a larger talent pool that way, especially with the adoption of Zoom, which is so widespread. But on the agent side, of course, we physically have to be present. So I think the leverage comes from the AI communicating with our clients.
Sorry.
All very good points. I think that what I see is that it's not totally so much that there's a lack of talent out there. I do think there's a little lack of work ethic. That's what I would say I see more than anything. I know in my office, I have 7 employees, 1 full-time, 6 part-time. Okay, and I think that is one thing that's really changed in the business. And I think that's one of the reasons is the point you just made. 10% of the realtors are doing 90% of the business. And I would say that's probably an issue more of work ethic on behalf of other leaders. If they do 2 or 3 ends a year, they're fine. So I think that there is lots of talent out there, but I will agree that we have to be careful that technology doesn't go too far to separate people from people. Because at the end of the day, AI is not buying the house. A person is buying the house. And they want to deal with a person to help them through that. They want AI to assist or technology to assist. But at the end of the day, it's still a person-to-person business, in my opinion.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's right, yeah. The human touch is it's a central part of business. Very good point. We're going to have questions starting in about 5 or 10 minutes, so I hope everyone is thinking about some questions for our panelists. The last question I have, formal question I have, has to do with the sage advice that we're looking from our panelists for, directed really to new professionals considering entering into the professions. And what advice do you have as folks starting a career in your respective professions? What's the mindset that they really need to have? What technology skills should they embrace to be successful in 2030 and beyond? What small but meaningful steps should they take now to really help future-proof themselves at the beginning of their career? Stephen, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think adding on to what we were saying, I think people, I've observed people entering the profession are looking for technology to almost replace them in many ways, rather than to add on to their services or to enhance their services. So that's one thing, and I get questions from young lawyers or people that are looking to article or starting their articles, can I use AI to do this, and can I do it to do this, and you can use it to assist you to do that, for sure, and you should. And you should be able to have a better product and serve your clients better if you do use it effectively. But the goal, I don't think, should be to replace yourself or to put it on autopilot and forget about it. It should be to enhance your services and to give a better product to your client. But that's the big thing. Don't forget that you at the end of the day, you have to oversee it. You're the one that's interacting with the client. You're the one that's giving the stamp of approval to the service that you're providing. So it should be there to assist you, but not to go on autopilot and replace you.
I'm curious, how frequently do your staff use AI?
I encourage them not to. Whenever I have new staff, and I know that they're using AI, I say, do it yourself first, and then use AI, and compare the two. But if you just get in the habit of plugging into AI and using that as your end product, you're not developing the skills that you need to. I would say on the litigation end, probably there are LexisNexis, for example, is producing. They're making leaps and bounds. So I would say on the litigation side, the staff is probably using it daily. On the real estate side of things, on the conveyance side of things, I don't think it's a huge component of our practice right now.
So we're going to ask the realtors now for sage advice to folks contemplating entering the profession.
So mine, I kind of alluded to before, but I think the most important thing is being a little bit old school and studying the fundamentals and really working hard on figuring out how you can create value for clients. I think there's a lot of talk about, a lot of the technology we've seen has been aimed at eliminating realtors, right? Or doing a lot of the services that realtors do, and there's a lot of fear about, is there going to be a role for realtors? And what I see is that, if your only skill set as a realtor is to show up to the property your client's picked out and write a contract, you're not adding a lot of value. Like, you probably should be replaced by AI, right? But I think with people used to rely on us for finding listings, for figuring out pricing, for doing things that AI or technology can do, but what they're still struggling with, and I think the struggle is bigger than ever, is looking at all that information and cutting through the noise and being able to make strategic decisions and how, property versus property B, what are the trade-offs, which one makes more sense for them in the long run, how do you negotiate a great price, what are the opportunities. I think what's going to happen is the realtors who are able to do those key skill sets and help people manage promotions, make their transactions smooth, they're actually going to get more successful, and the ones who aren't doing those are going to be wiped out by AI. So I think if you're getting into this industry, the key is study the fundamentals, figure out how you can add value and bring value to the transaction in a way that you can't be replaced.
Fantastic. Kelly?
I would say that really mental toughness and resilience is a key component of our business. We were all geniuses in 2021. And in a market like we're hit with right now, the mindset is probably the most important thing for the staying power to get through this period. who you surround yourself with is who you become, and success leaves clues. So when you start out, make sure you're surrounding yourself with the best agents. It doesn't matter as much how much you're earning at that point, it's what you're learning. That's key, and I'd say commit yourself to being lifelong learners, because we've had to pivot so many times. I've been an agent for 14 years, and when COVID hit and we couldn't run open houses and we were live streaming from open houses, and just having to continually adapt is the most important thing to success in this business.
Dan?
Yeah, so I would say in my business, what I would tell people that are trying to enter it is that you're not a person that inputs data into a computer. You're not a person, oh, this one drives me crazy for everyone who's listening. I am not the person that just witnesses your signature. So if you tell your clients that's what we do, please tell them something different. We solve problems. That's what we do. We solve problems all day, every day. Some very simple, some very complex. And a lot of people in the industry don't know that because we just have no need to tell you. We're doing our job, and our job is to get the deal done so that the client gets their home or gets their financing or whatever, that the realtor gets paid, that the mortgage broker gets paid. It all happens after we've done our work and we've solved our problems. So when I'm speaking to new notaries or people that are thinking about becoming notaries, which I've been asked to do, I tell them that you are a problem solver. And somebody just talks about being mentally tough, mentally strong. I would say in this industry, you have to be very mentally strong because things will come at you very fast. And when they're on my desk, that usually means we're 24 or 48 hours away from this thing's supposed to close. And completion dates are real, they are not made up, and we have to get it done. So that's generally speaking what I tell people in this industry. Be ready to problem solve.
I love it. I think that's great advice and a great way to sort of end this section of the discussion. What I love about these comments is that, although technology, I like to think of is sort of central to the success of the industry, it's really the human element on top of the technology that is so essential. We have to help people, and it's great to get paid for helping people, but understanding people's problems, understanding workflows, and technologies are really, it's just one of the tools to help you do those things.
Important tool.
I like to think so. All right, guys, so we're going to shift now, and I really hope we're going to have some questions here from the audience for this great panel. We're looking around. If not, we're going to keep talking. Oh, we have some? Over here. Oh, just the mic.
Yeah, my name's Jerry. I've been a appraiser for a long time. I'm a little wary of technology in some senses, and I was recently at a golf tournament, where you get all the best information, and I was speaking to a lender, and they had the first AI-assisted commercial appraisal come across their desk, and they were not happy. Because AI hallucinates. So I see it being restrictive in some aspects, of the real estate cycle. So I just want what your opinion on that is.
Right, yeah, and what angle are you looking for? How we should respond to that?
Yeah, like the question is, and I really like your answer. I'm not only here to co-sign. I wish somebody pointer. But how deep do you think AI will eventually go? In the real estate kind of cycle.
Right. So I'm going to start, and then Adina's going to jump right in. So, from my perspective, technology tools are tools to help you, but you need to have judgment and understanding of the issue. If you don't, then those tools can really lead you astray. So you have to have that level of base knowledge. But I'm personally a very strong proponent of trying these tools out and seeing them as ways to accelerate your success and your effectiveness. And some of the tools will work and some won't, but you need sort of professional judgment to steer yourself around. And you're dying to add to this.
Well, I just dying to add because we've had this example, like one of the challenges we've seen for AI in our team is for the marketing side, it's worked well because it's great for generating ideas and compiling information. On the admin side, we've struggled because when we've tried to get it to automate some of the things that our admin does, we've noticed that it hallucinates, and the problem isn't that it doesn't tell you it doesn't know, it just gives you an answer as if it knows. And to your point is you need to have someone who does know the answer to say, okay, yeah, this is true or not. So, to Kelly's point, great, it came up with this report that's a similar valuation to what Kelly put out, so that's great because it validates that. But if a junior agent's using it just for appraisal, they have no idea what the value is, you could get into some big trouble if it's giving you. So I don't have a solution, but I think that's one of the biggest challenges for using it in, like in a negotiation or an appraisal or real things. I don't know how, you get around it.
Yeah, I'll just answer real quickly. I mean, you still have to be smarter than the AI. Now, I know that sounds really strange, because that's not what it's supposed to be. But guess what? Liability is still yours as the professional, right? Nobody's going to sue AI. They're going to sue you, because you're the one who's supposed to get it right. So if you use AI, you better know that what it's doing is doing it right, or your insurer is going to be very busy. You guys like Steve will be busy.
Steve, you want to add?
Yeah, to that point, there's been a couple of lawyers in BC, I mean all over, but there's a couple of cases in BC where it's hallucinated cases that don't exist, that sound convincing. The lawyer presents that to the judge and then they get disciplined by the law society because you can't mislead the court. So at the end of the day, it's you as a professional who's on the hook. So you better be monitoring it and double checking its work if you're going to rely on it.
Yeah, just to add one more point. I see these tools as opportunities for you to learn and be a more effective professional. A lot of these tools allow you to sort of drill into the rationale behind the recommendation. And again, I strongly encourage you to do that. Check the references, learn about it, learn about what the thought process is. And I think that the tools really offer an opportunity to be a more effective professional. All right, love the questions on AI. What's the next question? Oh, we have one over here.
Great. Thank you so much for the wonderful discussion. A lot of really great points and takeaways. I think the emerging trend we're seeing is the threat of AI in cybersecurity. Things like malware, especially with lawyers and trust funds, any industry that's exposed to handling funds. How do you use technology to fight the bad AI?
All right, yes.
Yeah, so it's definitely, technology is a double-edged sword because it makes things more efficient, but then creates more risks as well. We go about our, transferring funds. It is a big threat, and there are frauds all the time. So as lawyers and notaries, we're always on high alert, and I think you have to have the proper policies and procedures in place to avoid being a victim of these types of frauds. We try to be as old school as possible. A printed check is a lot less opportunity to be defrauded than a wire transfer, for instance. But there's negatives because client has to come pick up a physical check, for instance. But we're having these conversations with clients right from the get-go to let them know, it's a lot of money that we're moving around, that there are risks. So here are the different ways that we can do it. We recommend this because it's the less risky way. But again, it goes back to communication, letting clients know that we're always vulnerable to these types of things. So we prefer to do it in the least risky way possible.
All right, I'm sure we have some more comments on this one.
It's an echoing made of what Steve said. You've just identified the thing that keeps me up at night more than anything else. I hate my trust account. I hate being responsible for that money. I have seen colleagues of mine, and I'm going to use an example right now because it freaks me right out. So we don't do any electronic wire transfers of any kind in my office. We write checks. Okay? You get the check, those stupid checks, so that's right. Now that I've given it to you, whatever happens to it now is your problem, not mine. So, notary in the Okanagan, using one of the bank's large money movement systems. Okay, so this is to wire money to another law firm, etc. Okay, fraudster somehow is able to go to the bank and get the password to their access changed. Okay, logs in and moves $750,000 out of their trust account into their account, wherever this account was. Okay? This is a bank let this happen. Okay? The only reason that this didn't blow up was because the firm, larger firm, has a full-time bookkeeper, saw the money out and wasn't sure what it was for. Went around to the notaries and said, hey, what is this? I don't know about this deal. And they all started looking at me, we don't know either. Right? Then they run down to the bank and find out what happened. And because it happened in the same day, the bank was able to reverse it.
Wow.
2 more days later, and no, now it's an insurance claim. Now it's going to be, whose fault is it? The finger pointing, the lawyers, the rest of it. So there's an example of somebody starting to say, oh yeah, we're trying to use this technology, and somebody's able to do that. So I'm with Steve on this. I still love writing checks. They're slow, they're cumbersome, they're a pain in the ass, they get held by banks, pisses customers off. Realtors, you're waiting for your check to get mailed, which is a problem right now since there's no mail. There's all sorts of problems. But at the end of the day, I know that when I sign that check to who it's payable to, and I hand it out, anything that happens after that point is not on me. So that's my comment. We got to be careful.
Be a little controversial here. I think that digital workflows for money movement can work. They can have lower risk than the analog offers. It's really a question about how they're structured, how they're enforced, how they're sort of maintained. And I'll point to Australia, and I think many of you may be familiar with PACSA, which does money movement and some of the parts of the conveyancing process in Australia. And it's a real national standard there. And there is some fraud with the PACSA system, but relative to other jurisdictions, there's a lot there. And they've created national standards, they've created some protection mechanisms, and they do a real good job with it. In any case, I'd just like to challenge a little bit the analog solution. I think that we do need to be open, recognizing that there is real risk, and we need to take security very seriously because there's a lot of consideration at stake here.
Sorry, I'm just going to say I don't disagree. I think that, I said it earlier, I'd love to see the digital movement of money to make our lives a lot easier. But security, it has to be secure. It has to be foolproof secure.
And I just want to say, we don't move money without risk, but one of the things I've been waiting for a cybersecurity question, because one of the things that shocks me in our profession as realtors is we get almost no training on cybersecurity. We're managing so much sensitive information for clients now, especially with interest. Like we have, their ID information, their contracts, and our team did a consult with the cybersecurity company, and they were flabbergasted at how much information we collect and send back and forth via email. And they helped us tighten up our systems and make sure things are encrypted. But if you think about it, most agents have it in their emails, on cloud services, on all sorts of things. If we get hacked, you're personally liable for that personal. So if a client's identity if your email gets hacked, that client's identity gets stolen, and things happen, you're liable for that. In our industry, I've never been trained on it within our order. And I think that's a bigger and bigger risk, especially with ChatGPT. You read about a lot now, which is one of our holdbacks of using it for admin things, is they're very easy to hack. It's so easy for someone to get into your ChatGPT. If you've been uploading client information or client files and doing things, what, protection do you have against that? So I think it's something that needs to be talked about more in our industry, of how do we safeguard that and keep clients' information secure.
It's a great takeaway. I think we have time for one last question, and we'll work towards closing this out. Do we have one more question? Anyone? All right, guys. Well, listen, I would like to thank Kelly and Avina and Dan and Stephen for their thoughtful insights today. As I reflect a little bit of the conversation we have today, it's clear that the future of real estate legal services, and frankly the entire real estate sector, is not going to be defined by technology alone. We've heard a lot about the human element being so critical on top of technology to really help work smarter, collaborate better with various professionals, and really drive towards delivering higher levels of value and trust to your clients. And I think the themes, again, that we heard today really resonate right across the conference and the various sessions. Whether it's reconciliation in action or renewal in the communities, preparing for economic shifts, I think we are here to help other people, drive value, and technology is one of the elements to get there. So I think as you sit back and you reflect a little bit on today's session, and you think about what's going on to the next session and going back to your practice, what I would challenge you to do is reflect a little bit in terms of how you can start to future-proof your business. What kind of tools could you consider adopting to help drive advantage? What kind of partnerships can you expand on to do a better job? Or simply take some time off and simply reflect a little bit about what you need to do differently to future-proof your business. So once again, love to thank the panelists here for sharing their great insights. How about we give them a warm applause? Thanks very much. I think that wraps the session up. Thank you.